Week 2 of fantasy football is here, and I have some tips for you guys. You are to the MJ Take on Sports Fan Entertainment. Hello, welcome to the MJ Take on Sports Fan Entertainment, and people have been blowing me up, blowing up my YouTube comments, blowing up my Twitter DMs, begging me to make another fantasy football video, because if you recall, before the season I made a fantasy football draft strategy tips video, and I told you people to draft and people to avoid. And if you go back and you look at that video, after week 1, they look pretty good. Alright, the things that I said in that video have proven to be true thus far and will continue to be proven true throughout the entire season. So, it's been proven at this point. I kind of know what I'm talking about when it comes to fantasy football, and people want more. People are very, into this fantasy football stuff, and unfortunately, I have not had time to make this video up until this moment, so hopefully it's not too late, but it shouldn't be. Adjust your lineups accordingly, because I have start and sits for week 2 of the fantasy football 2016 NFL season. All of this information can be found down in the description box below, and trust me, I will lead you to the promised land. I went 4-1 in my 5 fantasy leagues last week. I kind of know what I'm talking about. So let's start with the start list. Now, I can name the obvious names like Adrian Peterson or Ezekiel Elliott or all of that. I mean, I could do that, but I'm trying to list guys that are lower tier, guys that are borderline starters that you're not sure if you should start or not. Those are the kinds of guys I'm focusing on here. So before you say, where's Ezekiel Elliott? Everyone's starting Ezekiel Elliott. No one's benching Ezekiel Elliott. Okay, I'm trying to worry about guys that you could be benching, and now I'm telling you do not, because they're going to have a good week 2. Let's start with quarterback Matthew Stafford, and I'm starting to think that he has not only starting potential this week, but starting potential for the whole season. He looked really good last week, and the Lions' offensive line is looking a lot better. They drafted Taylor Decker, left tackle out of Ohio State. He had a really good game last week. Now Riley Reif is on the right side. Travis Swanson had a better game last week. Larry Warford, Laken Tomlinson. This offensive line is starting to gel, and Matthew Stafford is seeing the benefits of that. See, some people are talking about, well, he's doing better because there's no Calvin Johnson. That's a bunch of BS. He's doing better because the offensive line is protecting him better. That's it. When he was doing well in 2014 without Calvin Johnson, it wasn't because there was no Calvin Johnson. It was because the offensive line was protecting him better. That's it. That's been the problem. When the offensive line is good, he's good. When the offensive line is bad, he's bad. Stop dissing Calvin Johnson. So with that said, start him. He's going up against the Tennessee Titans. Their secondary stinks. It's the worst positional group on the football team, right next to wide receiver. And he will eat. I think he may get over 400 yards passing this game. 3 touchdowns. Big numbers for Matthew Stafford. Start Matthew Stafford. We move on to Eli Manning of the New York Giants, and this should be pretty obvious. He's going up against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints defense stinks, and they lost their number 1 cornerback in Delvin Breaux. Huge loss for them. You got to start Eli Manning if you're considering that. Derek Carr going up against the Atlanta Falcons, who have no pass rush, and the Raiders have the best offensive line in the AFC. I think the second best offensive line in the NFL. It's debatable between them and the Packers, but they're right up there. He's going to sit in the pocket, and he is going to kill the Atlanta Falcons pass defense. It is going to be ridiculous. You start Derek Carr. And also, I also like the matchup of Amari Cooper versus Desmond Trufant. He's a guy that, Desmond Trufant is a good corner, but he's a guy that struggles with these taller, more physical corners, and I think Amari Cooper will give him some issues and some trouble. So Derek Carr will have good success in week 2. We move on to running backs. Danny Woodhead of the San Diego Chargers. We saw last year when Keenan Allen went out, Danny Woodhead's production went up, and I expect more of the same. Danny Woodhead got a lot of carries last week also, so I like to see that. They want to give him the football. Ken Wisenhunt, the offensive coordinator, he loves running back by committee. Danny Woodhead will get his carries, and he will get receiving yards, a lot of receiving yards, a lot of receptions, especially in PPR leagues. Danny Woodhead will become a god this season. Danny Woodhead, to me, is a must start in week 2 and probably beyond. We move on to DeMarco Murray. And if you listen to me in my preseason video, I told you to draft this guy. And what did he do week 1? He lit it up. He's going to light it up again because the Titans just cannot pass the ball much. They can do it a little bit, but not much. They have to rely on their run game. They have to rely on DeMarco Murray. And he's the guy that's going to be able to score for them in the red zone because they don't have the tall or physical or good wide receivers in the red zone that can come down with these red zone catches. They do have a running back that can do it in DeMarco Murray. He's going to get a lot of touchdowns this year to me. You got to start DeMarco Murray in week 2. We move on to Tajae Yeldon of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Chris Ivory out yet again. The Jaguars going to be against the San Diego Chargers. Now the Chargers run defense isn't very good. Joey Bosa might play, but if he doesn't, that also hurts. And I think the Jaguars are going to win this game. They're going to be up on the Chargers, and they're really going to start running the football in the fourth quarter. And Tajae Yeldon may end up with a touchdown or 2 in this game. I really like Tajae Yeldon in week 2. We move on to wide receivers. Marvin Jones. And I told you to draft him, and hopefully you did. Now, last week he didn't get a touchdown, but trust me, I think this week he will. He's going up against the Titans' pass defense, which is absolutely awful. He will get his first receiving touchdown of the year, so don't worry about that. But yeah, in Marvin Jones, yet again, he will prove to be the Lions' #1 wide receiver, and I think he's going to get over 1,100 yards this season. We move on to Kelvin Benjamin of the Carolina Panthers. He had a nice debut, and now he's going to be against the San Francisco 49ers defense. And the defense isn't too bad, but one of the problems I see with their defense, specifically their cornerbacks, they're not that tall or physical. And I think Kelvin Benjamin is going to be able to win a lot of battles against these cornerbacks this weekend. I expect him to come down with a touchdown in the red zone at least. Big numbers for Kelvin Benjamin. We also have Tajae Sharpe of the Tennessee Titans. Again, I like him as a flex play. Okay, I think he's a guy that will get you 7 points every week, and then if he can get a touchdown as well, he can get you 13. He got you 7 last week. Didn't get a touchdown this week. He's going to get a touchdown. He's going to get you to that 13 number, and you will be happy with his performance. We move on to tight ends. Now, first I had Travis Kelce, and you're probably already starting him, but just in case you're in like a 4-team or 6-team league and you're starting, I don't know, Jimmy Graham or something, stop it. You start Travis Kelce. I think that the Texans will shut down Jeremy Maclin this week, and they will have to rely on Travis Kelce to really carry the load for this offense. He's going to have big numbers to me, huge numbers to me, because the Texans, they have Bernard McKinney, but they don't really have many guys capable of covering this type of tight end, so I think he's really going to eat this week. I love Travis Kelce in week 2. We move on to Antonio Gates. Again, Keenan Allen out for the year. The production has to be spread out elsewhere. I like Antonio Gates to pick up a lot of that production. Expect a big week from Antonio Gates. Even though he, didn't do well last week, I expect much more. And the Jaguars, they don't really have great coverage linebackers right now, so I expect more from Antonio Gates this upcoming week. We have some defenses as well. I like the Texans defense against the Chiefs. Again, I don't think the Chiefs are going to be able to move the football on the Texans much at all. I think they're going to shut down Jeremy Maclin. Jamal Charles still probably won't play, and Spencer Ware is just not good enough to break any defense, especially the Texans defense. Forget about it. So the Texans defense will be very good this week. Also, the Packers defense. Right now, the Vikings offense, to be quite honest with you, it's a joke. And the Packers defense, they will have their success this week. They may pick off Sam Bradford a couple times for touchdowns. I would not be surprised. I love the Packers defense this week. So now we're going to get into the sit list. Okay, that was a start list. This is the sit list. Now, before I go into the sit list, you always remember, this is up to you and your discretion. It has to do with who you have on your team, okay? There's some players on this sit list that I don't love this week. They're not going to be able to do much for you this week, but do you have someone better, okay? You have to make that choice, but if you do, sit these guys, okay? But you have to make sure you have someone better. Let's start with quarterback Russell Wilson. The guy's banged up. He has an ankle issue right now. He's not going to be that mobile this week against the LA Rams, and the Rams give him issues and troubles. We've seen it in the past. He's not going to put up more than 20 points to me this week, and 20 points may be the absolute maximum. When you tell me that, man, I'm buying out. If you have a viable backup for Russell Wilson, like the 3 quarterbacks I mentioned in my start list, You got to sit Russell Wilson this week. This is the last week, I think, but man, you got to sit him this week. We move on to Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Redskins' defense isn't great, but their pass defense is actually pretty good. I know Monday night they weren't that good, but it's actually pretty good. And, right now the Cowboys just have Dez Bryant and Jason Witten. That's pretty much all they have. Terrence Williams is a clown and a joke. He's not going to be able to do anything. Cole Beasley is nothing more than a below-average slot receiver. So Dak Prescott, no matter what, any given week, he's not going to be able to do that much for you outside of running the football. So just sit Dak Prescott. If you're considering starting Dak Prescott, don't do it. We also have Jameis Winston. I'm a big Jameis Winston fan, but I don't love this matchup against the Cardinals. Right now, the Bucs, they just have two wide receivers, okay? They have Mike Evans and Vincent Jackson. Right now, tight end Austin Seferian-Jenkins. He got a touchdown last week, but that was his only catch. He's a guy that's not really ingratiated in the offense right now. They're not going to have a very productive passing offense against this Cardinals defense that has two cornerbacks to match up with these wide receivers to me. So I think they're going to have issues and troubles, and I think Jameis will not have a very strong fantasy performance. So just go ahead and sit Jameis Winston if you have a better option. We move, and you should, okay, because this should have been your quarterback too. We move on to running backs, okay? Doug Martin, again, I don't think the Bucs are going to put up that many points on the Cardinals this week, so I don't love Doug Martin this week at all. And the Cardinals' run defense is actually really good, so yeah, I really don't love Doug Martin this week. We move on to running back Jeremy Langford of the Chicago Bears. Eagles have a pretty damn good front seven, man. It's pretty damn good. That's their strength of their, I think it's the strength of their whole team, but definitely the strength of their defense. So I don't love Jeremy Langford this week. I think you may see Jordan Howard get some carries, and really the Bears relying on their wide receivers, on Eddie Royal, on Kevin White, on Alshon Jeffrey more than they rely on their run game, and they may fall behind as well. So I really don't love Jeremy Langford this week at all. And then I also included every Baltimore Ravens running back. Just stay away from this situation. This situation is ugly. You're talking about Terrence West, Justin Forsett, Buck Allen. I don't trust any of these guys, and neither should you. You bench these guys until one of them shows that they're going to be the mainstay at running back, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to draft a running back next year. So just stay away, sit them, find a better option in the waiver wire, because, man, this is going to be frustrating for you, man. Stay away from these guys. We move on to wide receivers. T.Y. Hilton of the Indianapolis Colts. Don't see him doing much against the talented Broncos secondary. I expect him to be shut down by Chris Harris for the most part. We also have Jeremy Maclin. I mentioned it before. I think the Texans are going to slow down the Chiefs. I think they're going to pretty much shut down Jeremy Maclin. I don't see him having much, if any, success at all this week. Remember, in their dominant playoff win, Jeremy Maclin only had 29 receiving yards, man. In their week 1 win last year, only had 50. I think he didn't even have a touchdown. So he doesn't do great against the Texans, man. Don't expect much from him. Go ahead and sit him and find a better option. Probably the options that I just mentioned earlier. We move on to tight ends. Jared Cook of the Green Bay Packers, didn't do much last week, if anything at all, and I don't expect him to do much more against this Viking defense. I think Chad Greenway and Anthony Barr will shut him down, so just stay away from him. We also have Jimmy Graham of the Seattle Seahawks, again, a Seahawks wide receiver, a Seahawks talent on this sit list. I'm sorry, I'm just not buying the Seahawks in fantasy this week. Just stay away from Seahawks pretty much altogether. And then we also have a couple defenses. We have the Broncos defense. That's right, the Broncos defense. Look, for some reason, I don't know why, Andrew Luck is a little bit of a kryptonite to this defense. Remember back to that 2014-15 NFL playoffs. Andrew Luck and the Colts beat the Denver Broncos in Denver. I think the Colts are going to be damn good in this game, and I think they're going to give the Broncos some issues. So for me, if you have a better defense available, I'm going elsewhere, especially in FanDuel. Don't spend the money for the Broncos defense this week. Just find another option, a cheaper option, because I don't think they're going to do that great. And also, Andrew Luck is holding on to the football a lot better this season. And can we still please stop with the offensive line? Oh, the offensive line of the Colts stinks. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I don't know why people keep talking about this. No, it doesn't. And then finally, we have the Vikings defense. I'm benching them as well. I don't think the Packers are going to put up too many points this week, but I think it's going to be enough to the point where you will regret starting the Vikings defense over another defense. So, again, FanDuel and other daily fantasy things, I would just stay away from Vikings defense. You can go better, Panthers defense, Texans defense. That's a much better bet than the Vikings defense to me this week, because they're going to lose this game. Aaron Rodgers is going to put up at least 24 to me, and you just won't be happy with it. So just go ahead and find a better option for your defense. So there you go. Those are my week 2 fantasy football start and sit lists. What do you guys think about these lists? Comment down below. I want to know if you enjoyed the video. Make sure to like, and most importantly, to subscribe. And until next time, this has been the MJ Take on Sports Fan Entertainment, and I'm out. Peace.